An argument is willingness to step into the unknown. To argue genuinely is to understand that we don't know everything. To argue genuinely is to know that, okay, I have my insight and I have my conclusions about my observations about the world. But I'm going to be heroic enough to put it out there with an open mind, right? To step into the unknown, to open myself up to perhaps learning something from someone else's experiences. So I'm Dan O'Rourke. I am the father of 3 beautiful daughters. My oldest is 24. She just graduated from Trinity College in Dublin. That's Maeve Kathleen. I have a 22-year-old, Emma Bridget. She is selling real estate. She lives downtown Chicago. And Aileen Francis, she's my youngest, 19 years old, and she is studying speech pathology at Iowa University. So, they obviously give me a run for my money. I primarily think of myself as a dad. I would say I had a unique upbringing. I think everybody has had a unique upbringing in a sense. But I need to share a little bit probably about my background to help me understand who I am, helps me understand who I am. So I am the youngest of my mom's 7 children. I was born in northern Michigan, and my father was a judge on the circuit court in Oswego County. And so a tragedy occurred when I was just 4 years old. My father was killed in a car accident by a drunk driver, and my mother was in the car. And she was permanently disabled. I grew up with a disabled mom. Many people would say I grew up in an unhappy home, which I understand that perspective, but it was unhappy in the sense that I had to watch my mother suffer every day, physically, psychologically, emotionally. And, as a kid, I think you learn to cope through escape. Some of the escapes that I remember helping me most with was reading. Reading was one. I was in 8th grade, and I picked up The Hobbit. I remember this book really changed my life. I read all the Lord of the Rings, and here I am, 13 years old. I took that on as an escape, really, and I enjoyed it. But this was something I found myself excelling in, academics. I grew up next to Marquette Park, which is on the south side of Chicago, in a modest row house, and we really didn't have money. I didn't realize how poor we were because I'm just a kid. So in grade school, it was difficult and I think sad, but I found positive escapes. In high school, you get this grand sense of justice, I think. Just at that age, I think when you're 14 to 15, 16, 18, you have this hyper sense of justice. And so I wanted out. In high school, I wanted out. I wanted out of this whole miserable situation where things were so, unjust and unfair. I think about it now. And I thought my ticket out was college. I did everything I could to work towards that goal, which included oftentimes postponing immediate gratification so that I could put myself in a position to get out. So in college at Villanova, when I started in this pre-novitiate program, there was one academic stipulation, and I had to major in liberal arts, something in liberal arts, and I also had a minor in philosophy. All right, so I took a lot of philosophy courses, and my favorite course was taught by this Father Hagen, and it was English. I took this class, liked Father Hagen so much, I took his class the next semester, and next thing you know, by the time I'm graduating from Villanova, I'm an English major. And I loved English because, again, like when I was in 8th grade reading The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, it helped me understand these deeper human truths, about recognizing beauty, overcoming adversity, being attentive to the positives intentionally in order to overcome adversity. So my first love as a teacher is literature, and I love teaching literature to students. because it helps me help them understand that we're all in this together and that, we have common humanity. We can overcome obstacles and that we could be heroes in our own lives is something that I love teaching, right? And it's not just the story with the hero's journey. That's one thing. But it's also teaching poetry and language and the beauty of language and art and how, the permanence of art is something to shoot for, this idea of art and beauty and being attentive to the beauty in the world and the truth and the goodness. My second love, and one that I've focused more on in the latter part of my career, is teaching the argument side, the rhetoric side of English language arts. We need to understand argument as an opportunity to learn. We need to understand argument as a way to learn. Many of us misunderstand argument as something that needs to be won. And of course, an argument doesn't need to be won, right? We don't argue to win. We argue to learn. I don't know everything. And so I want to open up my knowledge, right, with a proposition. And I want to rub it up against somebody else's proposition that they have concluded from their experience. So we want to put these two propositions up against each other and argue about it. We want to argue about it, that stasis point. We want to come to that stasis point, and we want to argue about it, and we want to arrive at a higher truth. So we argue to learn. We don't argue to win. If we're arguing to win, we're arguing the wrong way, quite frankly. So what's the death of argument? I think the death of argument is when we argue to win. Anyhow, we need to teach students that argument is what we do best. I just, in my years of learning, I once upon a time heard the greatest invention, the greatest human invention is language. I love that. Language is the greatest human invention. I like to, if you look at the Oxford English Dictionary, and I'm not going to be able to look at the etymologies of these two words right now, but if you look them up, you'll see there's a slight difference between argument and rhetoric. Argument is about arriving at truth. So the purpose of argument is to arrive at the truth. The purpose of rhetoric is to persuade. So it's funny, those hopefully can be in alignment. And hopefully, if we're arguing properly and using rhetoric properly, they are in alignment. But, oftentimes I like to focus on that difference, because argument is about the logical formula where we're going to remove emotional reasoning. Argument truly is about a series of rational propositions that lead us to believe a conclusion. Now, rhetoric necessarily, which means to persuade, uses emotional reasoning to bolster its convincing nature. And oftentimes that emotional reasoning, instead of bringing us to the truth, can lead us away from the truth. We get too emotionally involved in a particular issue and we become blind to a fuller truth. We become blind to the other side that may have something to share that has merit. And so, in that regard, if we look at rhetoric, we want to be always careful about relying too much on emotion in convincing others, because unfortunately, oftentimes emotion gets in the way. It gets in the way of our learning. We need to learn from others. So we want to be open to learning. You've heard it said that you should listen to others as if they have something to teach you, because many times that will be the case if we allow others to teach us. And I'm not saying lose your conviction. You should always, it's good to have conviction about your beliefs, of course. But we should always be heroic enough to try to hone our beliefs and learn more.